Cheers. Hi everybody. I'm Ethan Miller from Howlin Rain. Premier Guitar has asked me to come and play a riff from a song that had a huge influence on me, by a band that had a huge influence on me, and a lot of other people. I don't even know where to begin. We're talking about Thin Lizzy. They are just one of the most colorful and just prismatic heavy rock bands of all time. And Phil Lynott is basically, you know, myth and legend. Pool hall hustler, romantic warrior, dreamer, melancholy and heartsick. You know, the 12-foot tall giant on the steps of the Sydney Opera House. You know, rocking the thousands, pure rock star. And a beautiful poet and lyricist and songwriter. The boys are back in town. There's so much to this song that makes a fantastic, I mean, obviously a fantastic listen. It's just a hit is a hit. I mean, that is a timeless jam. Just that great boogie shuffle and supposedly about, you know, street gangs. It's got a little bit of a sort of West Side Story meets tough, you know, British Manchester street gang vibe in the lyrics. And this is a great song to practice to. Also, all that rapid fire, those kind of like horn line guitar parts, they're tricky and they're nice. They keep your chops up, and you really got to sit down and dig into them and get a little practice going, at least for me. One thing that they do in that song that I really like, that is something that I do a lot I did a lot for the writing on the new Howlin Rain record, the Dharma Wheel, in songs like Rotoscope, Don't Let the Tears. One of the tricks that I like to do for myself, if I, you know, feel like I'm not being the most inventive with this guitar part, is to think of it like another instrument. And one that I often go to is a trumpet or a horn part. And that's either in writing kind of a horn section for the guitar or imagining a solo if it was a trumpet. So to me, the parts in this song, and the all that stuff, they sound like horn lines to me. But then when they come out the other end, they just are the most quintessential heavy rocking guitar lines that you've ever heard. They're just fantastic. But I can't help but wonder if they also were thinking about those as horn sections and horn parts, because of those sort of staccato, rapid fire, you know, enunciations that they do, and the rhythmic finger picking. So I don't know, that's a trick that I like. I pass it on if you're not already doing it, and sometimes you feel like, here's another, you know, pentatonic, you know, this, that, or the other that I just wrote. You know, is it good enough? You know, well, there's a little trick I do to try to think a little differently and get a little different sound. And often, you know, a trumpet would play a much more colorful line. And those nice staccato notes in it. So, and another thing about this song that I think is a great example is the verse, those great verse chords where he brings in all those minor sevens and they're jumping around. I think this song's a good example. It's a boogie, it's a shuffle. Basically, it could have been basically a one chord song with a couple of different chords to knock it out of place a little bit here and there. And the verse could have been the same, you know, not that different than the chorus chords, and they could have got away with it. But somebody went deep in there and did some exploring, and, you know, it's a great example of what can happen with chord substitution, what can happen with exploring around a little bit. If you got a band member that's maybe like, yeah, couldn't you write that a little better in there, you know, something a little more interesting? you know, that's a great section to take a look at what they do with the chords there. And I love the sound of them. They come out on the surface sounding like it should be kind of a jazzy, loungy progression, but the band is delivering it, kicking so much ass that it really just remains an ass-kicking verse. And part of that is because of these anticipated hits that they do on all those down, and then he does those all through the verse. And I love those kinds of anticipated hits, especially when you're playing softer, you know, kind of more pastel chords like minor 7, and you want it to still have a little, you know, a little more get up and go, a little more oomph and muscle. That kind of laying them down in that anticipated way on the one is a great trick to make that dynamic between like colorful or pastel kind of chords or jazzier chords and then still a rock feel. So I love the way they did that on this song. You know, other than talking it to death, it just is an immortal tune. And I love Thin Lizzy, and they immediately just take me to a special place. I mean, Phil Lynott can talk about Manchester street gangs, he can talk about the green hills of Ireland, he can talk about, you know, a night down at the pub, or you know, or just fantasy wizards and dragons, and it all feels good and within the wheelhouse. They have their own universe, and they created so much color and harmonic and lyrical and storytelling depth. Truly unsurpassed, in my opinion. So thank you, Premier, for letting me ramble on about it a little bit, and thank you, Thin Lizzy, for being one of the greatest rock bands of all time. Cheers.